I stayed faithful to a fantasy while she lived her reality. I stayed faithful to a fantasy long after the writing was on the wall. It wasn't a fairy tale sort of fantasy, no castles, no happy endings. It was simpler and more treacherous than that. There had been a belief that, once love was chosen, it stayed chosen. That if you showed up day after day, honored your word, swallowed your pride, and safeguarded the fragile thing you constructed together, reality would finally twist itself into what you needed. I thought that faithful abidance could survive neglect, that patience cost heal distance, and silence signified peace. Because living in that belief, there she was, somewhere else entirely. We met, and everything felt just right. We were normal people with normal dreams, so the connection felt earned rather than magical. We talked about stress at work and family expectations. What kind of future didn't require applause? I came to love her steady laugh and the way she listened, as if my words counted. I picked her early, quietly, thoroughly. Before labels, before promises, I chose her. Picking someone is simple when you start out. To stay chosen is where the work resides. I allowed space for her routines. I adapted them to me. I changed my schedule to fit hers. I learned how to offer comfort in every mood and give space when needed. I didn't flirt when others tried to involve me. I steered clear of chats that seemed like come-ons. It was not discipline, it was devotion. I said to myself, loyalty wasn't something you haggled over, it was something practiced. She began to change in ways that could be easily dismissed. Longer workdays. New interests that she didn't bring me into. A phone that was face down and then locked, and then treated like a secret. Everything I saw, but I opted for interpretations that did not burst the fantasy. People get busy. People need space. Trust means not keeping score. The fantasy wasn't that she would not cause me pain. That love would render hurting me unthinkable. We still dined together, chuckled at the same old joke. She still complained about me holding her hand in public. Those little proofs were, in fact, proof. I picked them up and tuned out the rest. Once she started pulling away at night, I chalked it up to exhaustion. When the conversations dried up, I comforted myself that silence meant comfort. When even love seemed to tick off my calendar instead of springing organically, I told myself, this is what long-term love looks like. I remained loyal not only in body, but in mind. I did not give myself the luxury of what if. I didn't daydream about alternatives. I didn't compare. I didn't prepare for loss. I committed to the version of us I thought we were going to be. Meanwhile, her world grew beyond me. It began with names I didn't know, stories cut short. A light in her eyes when certain alerts arrived. She referred to friends in a casual way that seemed rehearsed. I posed the gently questioning questions, the ones calculated to encourage truthfulness without taint of accusation. She responded with ease, and I mistook ease for the truth. I longed to be the one who could have faith and not require evidence. I wanted to be the man who didn't need reassurance. So I swallowed the disquiet and labeled it as maturity. The first time I genuinely felt scared, it was a surprise. Fear isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the silent realization that you're standing still while someone you love is striding fast in a direction you can't follow. In times when I should have felt safe, I had a sense of expendability. I'd been a secondary character in my own relationship. I had convinced myself love meant putting up with things. She started to guard her time in ways she never had before. Plans shifted last minute. Weekends filled up without me. When I inquired after her whereabouts, the responses were vague but extremely assured. When I asked how she was, the responses had been curt. "Are we good?" I said. "Of course," she replied, smiling. Smiles become weapons when they are wielded to distract from reality. I remember one night, clearly. She was late. No message. No explanation. I was sitting on the edge of the bed, phone in hand, trying to come up with calm sentences so I wouldn't sound insecure. She was a good 40 minutes late and, when she arrived, gave me a swift apology kiss on the cheek before heading to shower. The water flowed a long way. I gazed at the wall and understood I was alone in my own house. That was the point at which I should have insisted on truth. It was, rather, when I decided to double down on the fantasy. I'd convinced myself loyalty meant not asking questions. That love was believing, even when belief was painful. My loyalty had been to an idea of us that demanded I carry all the weight. The truth came less as a dramatic confession. It sneaked in past details that wouldn't add up. A message visible over her shoulder. A name saved differently. A story that shifted just enough to expose the lie behind it. Reality doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just stops hiding. When I finally called her out, I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I requested truth like I might ask for mercy. She didn't deny it at first. She drew a sigh as though what I had queried were not agreeable. And then she recounted to me her truth. She said it wasn't serious. She told me it didn't mean anything. She said that she hadn't wanted him to do it. She said she still loved me. Every sentence to her felt like another little betrayal on top of the big one. What she didn't mention was that she had options. That she had constructed a parallel life within our shared one. That even though I kept the faith, she kept the feeling. Her reality wasn't cruel. It was practical. It was about excitement and attention and being seen in ways that were different. My fantasy was about fidelity and waiting for the long view. We were no longer living in the same world. I wanted to know why she hadn't told me earlier.
She said she didn't want to harm me.
That answer almost broke me. As if, had they been more secretive, they would have been kinder. So the truth would have hurt more. And I knew then that there was an invisibility to my faithfulness, as she had seen nothing. It was a constant in the background, something that didn't need to be tended to. My fidelity had become the backdrop that let her take risks anywhere else. The days after the truth emerged were leaden and sluggish. We circled each other like strangers who had a past and no future. My mind played each scene for me, looking for the moment in reality where this fantasy should have let out. How long had she been living her truth while I'd been defending mine? I didn't hate her. That surprised me. I felt grief more than anger. Grieves me, the man I was, so confident that love rewarded faith. Regret for the her I had saved even when she was not there anymore. She asked if we could fix it. She said she was confused. She said she needed time. Those words felt familiar. I was giving time the whole time. This time I said differently for the first time. I said I could not compete with the reality she preferred. Then I informed her that I was no longer going to sacrifice my intuition for the sake of peace. That love without respect isn't just patience, but erasure. Leaving wasn't dramatic. No doors were banged, no final speeches. There was just a hushed acknowledgement that if I stayed on, I'd have to betray myself. I really slowly, purposefully packed my bags, as if instructing myself that it doesn't take violence to make an ending real. The fantasy didn't die in a single explosion. It stuck around in habits and memories. The ones when I went to text something and then remembered there was no one to send it to. Faithfulness doesn't switch off easily. It has momentum. But little by little, reality was something I could live in as well. I learned that devotion should never demand ignorance. That trust doesn't mean silence. That to choose someone should never mean abandoning yourself. I realized fantasies can be sort of beautiful, but are dangerous when they start demanding denial. She lived her reality while I remained true to a faith. Neither of us was the villain of our story, but only one of us had the guts to tell the truth about where we were headed. And now, when I think of love, I'm less likely to think about enduring and more likely to think about aligning. Less about hanging on and more about standing still long enough to work out who is staying in place with you. Faithfulness, I have learned, is not about staying no matter what. It's about being somewhere truth is permitted to be in residence. I don't regret how I loved her, but I no longer equate devotion and disappearance. I no longer remain true to daydreams. I pick realities that pick me back.